I see her at night. She comes out of the closet. In the closet, one night, I slept over at my friends, Dan and Bella's, after a good drunken night out to celebrate their wedding anniversary. Driving in my condition was fraught, and they had a big house, inherited from my grandmother, and plenty of room. A reasonable offer to stay overnight, especially for a bachelor with no one waiting for him at home. "Look, the lights go out a lot at night," Dan warned me, "so be careful. My son's always throwing toys around. He almost killed himself once." I said I understood, and grabbed the bedding and went to bed. But I had too many impressions that night, or maybe it was the new place. In the end, I slept very badly. I had nightmares all the time. It was stuffy, and it was with the window open, and I saw all sorts of devilish things. At the third hour of the night, on top of everything else, I was thirsty, and if I could fight the nightmares somehow, the thirst made me finally wake up and go in search of life-giving water. There was no light in the house, as Dan had promised. My eyes were used to the darkness, though, so I didn't have much trouble seeing. Reaching into the refrigerator, I pulled out a pack of cold juice. I drank half of it in one go, and then I heard a soft, barely audible baby cry. I frowned. Only Clint, Dan's 5-year-old son, could be crying. I stood in the kitchen for a while, listening, but the crying continued, and Bella and Dan were apparently sleeping too soundly. I returned the juice to the fridge and decided to see what was up with the baby. On the one hand, it wasn't my concern, but I couldn't pretend not to hear anything and go to bed. Walking toward the sound, I reached the room at the farthest end of the hallway. I stopped. The crying was definitely coming from behind the door. So I opened it and peered into the room. Just a normal room, a spread bed in the center, a desk by the door, and a large closet along the wall. "Clint," I asked quietly, "why are you crying?" Someone stirred in the corner, and the crying stopped. "There's Clint," I thought, and walked into the room, closing the door behind me. I walked over to the baby, who was sitting in the corner sobbing quietly. "So," I asked, as kindly as possible, "what are we sobbing about?" Clint was silent for a moment, and then said quietly, "Scarecrow." I didn't get it. At that moment a child whispered quite quietly from behind me and fell silent. At that moment, I literally felt in the back of my head that someone was actually standing behind me, and I felt creepy to the point of shaking in my knees. I turned around. There was no one behind me. In the closet, Clint said, "Come to life when you leave." I was angry at myself, a grown man afraid of some childish scarecrow. I pulled myself together and, muttering the proper words for such moments, saying that it was all just a dream and there was nothing here, I walked over to the closet and opened it sharply. "See, there's nothing here," I said. The closet was indeed empty. I then talked Clint into bed, wished him a good night, and promised him that I would chase away any scarecrows as soon as I could. Dan woke me up in the morning. We had breakfast with him and started to get ready for fishing. Already on the lake, I remembered my night adventure and laughingly told it to my friend. Dan was silent, and then said, "Turn around." I looked at him in surprise. He was as pale as a sheet. Clint had slept through the night with us, and in the far room down the hall, my older brother had slept in once upon a time. "Brother?" I asked, feeling a chill run down my spine. Dan nodded. "He was found dead when he was 5 years old. He said he saw someone. She was coming out of the closet. And my son says he sees her too."